Namaste and welcome. What is the fulfilled life? And how is spiritual practice helpful for living the fulfilled life? Let's take a couple of deep breaths together. And if you're new to working with me, the breath I'm encouraging is to breathe up through your feet, up through the whole body, and let go in all directions with your imagination, like you're just letting go of tension in all directions. And we'll do 3 of those together. So inhaling up through your feet, through your nose, exhaling in all directions through your nose. And do that twice more. And if it's helpful and if it might feel good, let the 3rd one out on the exhale with an audible sigh. Ah. Good. Breathing is key to releasing tension, connecting to fulfillment, and feeling resourced, supported. So when spirituality is useful, what is it doing? Many of us over decades and centuries probably have inherited a lot of ideas about spirituality that may not be helpful to being fulfilled or actually being able to apply the tools or principles that we've been shown in a way that's got any added value to our lives. And if you know me, I'm committed that what we do, what we work with, adds value, not subtracts value. Also, I'm committed that we're not having to hang out in the intellect, overly thinking and cogitating and agitating mind and figuring stuff out. The lion's share of uncovering wholeness within is just what it sounds like. It's uncovering it. So we're presupposing, we're making the assumption that wholeness is the natural state of affairs, and it's simply covered up by layers, veils of tension, different types of tension. False beliefs create a tension. The classic example of being in a country setting, a rural setting, and going into a thatched hut, and there's not much light, and there's something coiled in the corner. Well, if you're perhaps near the jungles of India or someplace where there's snakes, you may believe or wonder if that coiled object is a poisonous snake that could take your life, when indeed it could just be a coiled length of rope. So if we believe there's a poisonous snake in the corner when it's really a rope, that's an example of a tangled up belief that causes suffering, that creates tension, and that covers up our experience of fulfillment and wholeness. And we can extrapolate that out together and apply that to so many things. If we believe somebody's upset with us and then that we become twisted up and tense ourselves in some form of people pleasing or avoiding or repressing, right? But they weren't upset with us at all. That's an example. So when spirituality is going really, really well, it's actually an integral approach, a holistic approach to any and every moment that allows us to access the greatest amount of wholeness for the highest good of our own fulfillment and the highest benefit of others included, as well as the environment, ourselves, our relationships, and the environment. And not just our chosen relationships, but any human really. So part of authentic spirituality, when it's going well, when it's a holistic, it's an integral, it's an embodied spirituality, is doing less harm. I don't know that it's possible in these bodies at this time on the planet to do no harm. Every time I wash my hands, I kill a lot of bacteria, probably countless billions of bacteria and other things when I just sanitize my hands or clean the house. So, unless we're going to get really, really lost in too much specificity, which will create more tension, there's going to be harm done. Even breathing is killing different organisms while adding value to the human body. So doing less harm is one of the indicators that our spiritual practice is growing. We're doing less harm, and we have ways of getting that reflected back to us. What are some other things? Well, the ability to freely take action on things that add value to our own life, the lives of others, and the thriving nature of the environments that we inhabit. Our capacity to feel content and whole without needing to be involved in an activity, whether that's the internal activities of thinking and cogitating, or an external activity, being busy. So the ability, the capacity, growing the capacity to be content. What is it to be content? To feel fulfilled. Can you feel fulfilled right now? Just being still and silent and relaxed and enjoying your breath. Now, if you're going to be really intellectual about this, yes, you could make the argument that we're still doing something. We're attending to contentment. We're attending to breathing. We're attending to relaxing. So don't get trippy with this. What I'm talking about is not needing to constantly be involved in an app on the phone or doing a project, but to actually feel fulfilled and a degree of happiness that doesn't require an outer cause, involvement in some occasion or activity. So these are some of the markers. So how can typical spirituality help us uncover wholeness? And by typical, I mean like the obvious practices of meditation, breathing practices, contemplation, and things like this. So in the earlier stages, or in the earlier stage of dealing with something difficult, not terribly different, we're using meditation for what's called calm staying. Calm staying. So to be able to be somewhat restful in approaching our tension and stay with it rather than get distracted, avoid it, repress it, suppress it. So meditation in the earlier stages of dealing with a challenge, or in the earlier stages of just even being exposed to meditation, we're learning to experience and build the capacity for calm staying. Within that, we're building the ability for one-pointed focus, to hold focus without adding tension to hold focus. So if any of this is starting to overstimulate you, take some full-body breaths, feel where that is in the body, and have the feeling that as you exhale, you're letting go in all directions, like you're just opening muscles that have been holding. Make it up that it's easy. This is a practice. This is not about being perfect. This is cultivating something. Cultivating something, like cultivating a garden. Cultivating a garden is not a one-day affair. It's a process for as long as you're the steward of that garden. Or regenerating a forest might be even more apt example. Regenerating a forest where the soil has been damaged, maybe pollution was dumped there and the trees are barely hanging on. So we're going to plant these new saplings, but we need to first cultivate the soil to be able to give life, to be nourishing. This is what we're doing. This is what we're doing in authentic, useful spiritual practice. We're spotting tension patterns. We're spotting where we grasp, cling, chase. We're spotting where we hold our breath. We're spotting where we contract muscles that are unnecessary for the activity we're doing. So it's a holistic approach. Now, I'm going to open this up a little bit wider, kind of part the curtains for some of us to see something really important about why I'm even using the word spirituality. So we have these physical bodies as long as we have them, and you can touch your body, you kind of know it's there. We have thoughts, we have emotions, but that's not all that we are. What enlivens the body? What gives it life? What allows it to be alive? What gives your capacity to think and listen energy? So there's a current, a life force that is at one time, all at once, fully energized. The energy can't be destroyed, as thermodynamics teaches, the first law of thermodynamics, that energy can change forms, but it's never destroyed. For example, like when the plant that you can't see next to me, if it comes time for that plant to die, the energy in the plant can never be destroyed. It just moves into a different form. Same with the energy in our bodies. It can be self-aware. It can know itself. And it has qualities that can be experienced in that knowing of love, degrees of blissfulness, contentment, and wholeness. Wholeness, the real deep felt sense of wholeness, if it's coming from a relationship, if it's coming from a shopping spree, if it's coming from buying a house, if it's coming from a job, all those things are temporary in nature. They can go away, they can change. So if my sense of wholeness is fundamentally tied to something that can change or go away, it's very flimsy. It's not really true wholeness. And yet true wholeness is available. And that's what we're here to look into and feel into. This video is an invitation to deepen your awareness of what you're practicing and why, and to actually experience more of the fruits of skillful practice. I have at different times earlier in my life been guided into different practices, but didn't have a really useful context for why I was doing it. I was just told, this is what we do and this is how we do it. You know, you could think maybe of especially in some of the Abrahamic traditions, in fundamentalist views and things like that, you know, maybe fundamentalist Catholicism or something, you're told as a child, you know, you touch the holy water to your forehead when you go into the church, and you say these things, and you cross yourself this way, and you kneel now, and you stand now, and you kneel again, and you say these prayers. But why, Mommy? Why, Daddy? What is this doing? This is just what we do. Well, how does that feel? I don't want you or I to just do things just because. We need a context, and it needs to be an empowering context. And the empowering context and the invitation for more wakeful spiritual practice, integrated embodied spiritual practice in service of the fulfilled life, is for wholeness. To experience wholeness that is not dependent on the temporary, and to be able to be a presence of that wholeness for willing others and this planet. That's part of the context. There's more available than that, but that's part of the context. Let's take a deep breath. Just let go again in all directions. So, the core principles or the core practices that I see and experience over decades of practice and coaching others into deeper practice and leading groups and retreats and trainings and so on, can be distilled down into forms of meditation, forms of breathing, and there's well over 500 different ways to organize the breath between the nose, the mouth, different rhythms that all organize and shape energy in their own unique way. There's contemplation, being able to hold a question or something that we're curious to know more about, know more deeply, know more innately, intimately, in a spacious form of awareness that allows that object or question to naturally reveal greater wisdom and understanding within us. So contemplation is really important. Self-inquiry. Well, a higher form of self-inquiry is, who or what am I really? If I'm not the body, I'm not my thoughts and my emotions, because all those are temporary and changing, then what am I? What fundamentally am I? Well, spoiler alert, you are the source of wholeness itself, temporarily individualized as you. Same for me. But to experience that, rather than just have that be a belief or a thought, is why we engage in skillful practices. And why we hang out with folks, ideally if we can, and I hope you can and do, whether that's at a distance over video or Zoom or in person, which is wonderful, where we can pick up on that radiance of people who are dwelling in deeper wholeness than we've yet uncovered. There's that word again, uncovered. We're uncovering wholeness. We're not manufacturing it. We're not going and getting it and kind of eating it. we're uncovering it within. And we're learning how to bring it into the structures of the body so it's embodied. It's not something that we only experience when we're in our meditation, and then when we get up to go drive to the store, we're suddenly a mess of rage or fear or anxiety or, unhealthy grief. Take another deep breath with me, will you? Let it go and let the breath expand in all directions through your whole body, head to toe. Yeah. So meditation, contemplation, self-inquiry. Those are three of the main pillars. Then from there, we learn how to give freely. Give freely where it's skillful to give. Is it skillful to give to every human freely that we meet? No. Some people are so organized in their attention in a particular way that they're takers. Whether they've got some psychological pathology going on that's orienting them that way, they maybe grew up with somebody really, really difficult. They didn't form healthy, or we didn't form healthy attachments to our primary caregivers. So we want to look for and spot, as the writer Adam Grant has said, organizational psychologist in his first book, we want to learn how to spot and give abundantly to other givers and become givers. And we also want to learn how to have what's called secure attachments. To have a relationship with another human being, there has to be some degree of an attachment, or we forget that they exist. We forget that they exist at all. Even for some degree of healthy compassion, there has to be some form of attachment, or we just don't even care. We don't pay attention. We're kind of spaced out. So we want the attachments we form to be formed from already touching wholeness within ourselves. That's the ideal. Are any of us perfect at it? No, I'm not. We're all works in progress, forever growing. There's always the next stage to grow. No matter how advanced one's practice may appear to be, there's always the next realization to embody and grow into. So forming healthy attachments. What is a healthy attachment? That we can come and go and not freak out because there's been a gap in time since we last saw each other. And we have the wherewithal to intuitively sense when to reach out when there's been a gap. Send that text, send that loving note. Each relationship is a little different. Like each plant in the garden has different needs of water, temperature, nutrients, and sunshine exposure. So as we uncover more wholeness within, we naturally become more intuitively clear about how best to interact with each of our relationships. We sense it. We don't have to think our way through it. So much I'm hoping you're hearing is available when spirituality is integrated, integral, and holistic. Meaning it's not just some peak state we seek to achieve through some sort of I call my breath work, one of the forms of it, ecstatic breath work. You can get really high in ecstatic breath work, but that shouldn't be your only tool. We need the other tools of meditation, being able to presence rather than dissociate, being able to touch wholeness in the midst of challenging emotional states, to be able to touch inner resources when we're feeling challenged and emotionally compromised. Yeah? Let's take another deep breath together. This is a lot of material, so it can be really stimulating in the nervous system. Let go on the exhale. So, you could say that this video is a PSA, a public service announcement, to promote practice, whether you do that with me or somebody else. To promote steady, consistent, deepening practice, and to reflect on your practice. How's it going? How's it going? Is there anything that seems missing or not integrated or that would benefit from some adjustment? And it's often really, really beneficial to do portions of our practice on the regular in a relational space. What do I mean by a relational space? With one or more other developed human beings. That can be a therapist, that can be a master coach like myself, facilitator, spiritual teacher, and it could be in group settings as well. That can be really, really beneficial when we're ready for it. Because many of us, from being little children, have stored traumas and imprints about being in groups not going well, And we held energy that we didn't have the time, space, or resources to digest when it happened. And I was bullied a ton as a child. I was picked last because I didn't develop really strong proprioceptive awareness and coordination and sportsmanship until later in life. My dad didn't have the patience to teach it to me, and my mom hadn't developed much of it herself, so there I was. And so I was this kid who ended up thinking really poorly of himself because I hadn't yet been shown how to use my body and develop greater balance and coordination. There was nothing wrong with me, but I took on a mood of being less than, and then that built itself and attracted evidence over the years that that was true when it wasn't. And so in working with the different facilitators in my life, my tools of spirituality, this is a key principle right here, help to expose the things I'd forgotten I was holding on to. So authentic, useful spiritual practice is also going to expose, it's going to bring into awareness where we're holding tensions. How does that happen? Well, one of the ways in practices like the ones I lead and teach involve empowered mantra practices. And certain empowered mantra practices, the energy in those sounds, very profound energy in those sounds, whether they're repeated internally or externally, move energy. And many of you watching here have had that experience already. You know what I mean. If you haven't yet had that experience of mantras, what we call mantras, Sanskrit mantras, you can just think about how words can get somebody to just jump. You know, if somebody you really, really are attached to and really matters to you and you really care about deeply suddenly goes into a rage and calls you a horrible name and looks you right in the eye and does it with so much vitriol, many of us would really take a hit in the body. The nervous system would start to really kind of feel like it's collapsing or shattering, right? So if that can happen with somebody saying some words, not even punching us or anything, like just saying some words, what can an empowered mantra do? A lot. And so one of the things that deep, powerful mantras can do is expose where we're holding things and then give us the resources, a very powerful energetic resource to digest and release the tension of that held energy. When we release these tensions of bound energy, that energy becomes creative energy that we can use for anything. And the body right away begins to integrate it, right away. So there's so much more that can be said about this, so much more that could be experienced and practiced about this. And that's why the journey is generally not overnight. It's over time. It's over years. And it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And we find ways to fall in love with the work. We find ways to see where we've grown, feel gratefulness and appreciation for that, which gives us energy to keep going, to keep deepening. So part of the invitation here is to keep going. And if you're feeling that feeling, and many of you are watching this, I encourage you to go over to my website and look around and see what's there. See what your intuition is guiding you to. I'm very much steering people towards a very integrated course I have created and offer called the Thriving Life Blueprint. It's extended out over a number of modules with lots of different practices, including empowered mantra practice, guided meditation, working with the breath in different ways. And it's stretched out over time, and you can do it over and over again. Any of these courses on my platform, you own for life when you purchase them. So I create them with that in mind to have you keep repeating them because they go deeper and deeper. You can hear more, you can see more as tension releases. So that's one possibility, and there are other possibilities there. Let's do a practice together. So unless you've got a medical condition that's preventing that, and if you do, just lay flat and relax. Otherwise, please be upright with your long spine. Sit with a noble, dignified posture. Sit in a way that helps you to feel good about yourself. Your head, your neck, and your trunk in a long line. Yeah. And just notice what that feels like to elongate your spine, to bring a little lift in the front of the chest. Tip the chin forward just a little bit so you allow a gentle opening at the base of the skull, between the base of the skull and the top vertebrae. And just feel the sensations of the breath. And I'll guide you a little bit if that's new to you. So feeling the sensations at the tip of the nose as the breath comes in and goes out. And unless your nose is obstructed, please breathe through your nose. Having the feeling you're receiving the breath rather than taking the breath. That the benevolent, loving, creative power of life itself is breathing your body right now. And you're feeling the sensations of that breath at the tip of your nose. It likely feels soft and fuzzy there, but it could feel some other way for you. And there's the sensation of the breath crossing the back of your throat. It'll feel cooler on the way in and warmer on the way out. Just notice that feeling without having to describe it to yourself in words. Just feel. And then notice the feeling of the expansion and release of the rib cage as the lungs fill and empty and fill and empty. And see if you can feel all three places at the same time. Tip of the nose, across the back of the throat, and the expansion of the rib cage. What does that feel like? What does that feel like to just gently attend to the sensations at these three locations? Are you noticing your thinking stream slowing down? Are you noticing your heart rate slowing down, if you're able to feel that? Those of you who wear a Fitbit or an Oura ring, you might rewind this practice. Look at what your ring or Fitbit is telling you about your heart rate variability before you do the practice, and then look again at the end, and you're likely to see a change. So keep the breath flowing, letting the exhales just become a little bit longer with each exhale, a little slower. And you're still having that feeling of being breathed by the benevolent, loving, creative power of life itself. With your imagination like you're opening closed fists with your mind, making up that it's easy, soften the soles of your feet continuously, softening the skin, tendons, and connective tissue and muscles all the way to the bone. And do the same thing with the palms of your hands. Soles and palms just naturally becoming softer and softer and softer. Softening the four corners of your eyes and the region inside and around your ears, inside and the outside corners of the eyes, and the region inside and around your ears, melting like butter on a hot day. Softening your tongue as it rests deeply in the floor of your mouth. And lastly, softening all the little muscles running through the pelvic floor, groin region, sphincter PC muscle. Just letting go throughout all that whole region. Letting that region melt into your cushion or your chair. So softening soles, palms, eyes, ears, tongue, pelvic floor, groin region. And if you haven't already, you may like to gently close your eyes. And just see if you can detect a gentle feeling of contentment simply through feeling the sensations of long, slow breath and softening soles, palms, eyes, ears, tongue, pelvic floor. Where do you feel the subtle feeling of contentment in your body right now? Ask this question to your body. Where can I sense a subtle feeling of contentment in my physical body at this moment? And then where you find that, imagine that your inhalations are flooded with life-giving nourishment, with the original creative power of life itself infused with wholeness, that this energy of nourishment flows on every inhale, and you simply breathe into where you're feeling this contentment in your body, letting the nourishment infuse this region. And as you exhale, imagining letting go in that region in all directions with the breath, releasing slowly at a pace you can handle any tension that might have been or be around this area. Let's just do about 2 minutes of this practice together, sitting quietly, inhaling nourishment into the region where you feel subtle contentment and letting it expand and release any edges of subtle holding or tension as you exhale. Leaving your eyes closed at the moment, just let go of trying to do anything right now. And just be there. Just be there in your seat. And freshly notice what you're feeling and how you're feeling about what you're feeling. You can take 3 deep breaths to signal a transition to your body, sweetly. And at the end of those 3 breaths, as and when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. So this is just a taste of a practice. You could take this practice and work with it much longer, for the rest of your life really, but in each time you practice, you could make it longer. This could be a full meditative practice and a powerful way to begin and end each day, and or to deal with a difficult experience as the difficult experience becomes recognized by you. So there's so much more, as I said, to look forward to experiencing, and that's available in terms of tools and practices and guidance. Thank you for your practice. Everything is connected to everything. So as you and I dissolve tension, we are naturally going to do less harm. We are naturally going to be radiating more wholeness into the field that we share with all living beings. And as there's more wholeness palpable, foregrounded into the field we share with all living beings, it becomes more possible for greater numbers of people to choose to grow. And then what kind of world do we get to live in as more and more people choose to grow? So by you choosing to practice more and more deeply and consistently, you are being the change you wish to see in this world. And thank you so very, very, very much. If you have questions about this, you can put them in the comments below the video and I'll do my best with them. And if you're enjoying this, please share this video as widely as you'd like. You can you can subscribe, and we'll see each other soon.